Hi everybody, this is Mark with Beyond Profit, Global Perspective, and I want to talk about socialization today. Okay, probably already lost some of you, like click, switch, said a word socialization, that sounds too fancy and long and I'm not interested in it. Stop. I want you to bear with me. This is a lot more interesting and a lot more important than you think it is. So a quick and easy definition of socialization. How do we know what we know? Where does this information come from? And how does that information affect the way that we think and affect how we behave? If you're still not with me, if you still don't understand why this is important, let me explain it to you in very plain terms. If you're a business person or a leader, it's very important for you to understand what other people believe, where they got their information, and how they behave, or else you won't be able to influence them to do certain things. It's also true in one of the other subjects that I study, that is politics, that you're not going to be able to be an effective political leader either if you don't understand something about this. And so this is a really, really basic building block of understanding political and business leadership. If you don't understand it, you're not going to be able to be an effective leader. What we're talking about here is the limitations that people have in their own thinking and the limitations you have in your thinking. So let's get into it. I want to thank all of you for supporting this channel. Particularly want to thank my students who probably feel like they have to watch these videos because it will help them in one of my classes. But I also hope that even if you're not one of my students, then you'll get a lot out of it too. Right now, we're not a huge channel. We've got under 500 subscribers. That's hopefully going to change here in the near future. But please continue to support us by liking, subscribing, sharing these videos. Likewise, if you're watching one of these videos and you want to know more about something or you have some questions, please leave comments down below. I look at those and it gives me a lot of ideas on things that maybe I can talk about next. All right, let's have a quick review of a concept that I've mentioned in some previous videos just to put things into context. And that is the idea of agency versus structures. So agency basically means that an individual has control over their environment, that their decisions matter, that they have moral agency. That is, that if they're making a good decision, that's going to make one impact. If they make a bad decision, it's going to have another impact. And this may seem obvious to some of us, but the idea is that if I am a leader or even if I'm an individual in society, there are consequences to the actions, and I have a lot of freedom in my ability to make those choices. Structure, on the other hand, talks about those elements of society that limit our decisions, and these are real things. Some of these are physical, material things like money, for example. If I don't have money, then it limits my ability to do certain things. If I have a lot of money, then I have a lot more choices. The same is true with resources, all sorts of physical things. So when we were talking about socialization, we were talking about social psychological structures. That is, the groups that surround us, the information that we receive, all of this adds up to limitations on our behavior. Now, when I think about agency and structures, it reminds me of a movie from the 1990s called The Matrix. What's the premise of the film? The idea is that everybody is living in this sort of mass delusion. In reality, this advanced AI computer system has sort of enslaved real people, turned them into batteries that sort of sleep in these units, and people aren't aware that that's their reality. So what happens is that the main character, Neo, who's this computer programmer, coder guy, starts to realize there's something weird about the environment that he's living in, and he starts to question his reality, and he's wondering whether or not the world really is as it seems. And sooner or later, he runs into this guy named Morpheus, who's sort of an underground resistance person who wants to enlighten people about the fact that they're living in this computer program. This computer program is called the Matrix. So when I talk about this with my leadership classes and I show a little bit of a clip from the Matrix, I'm sure that they're probably available on YouTube or elsewhere. I look for that red pill scene. It's a key scene where Neo and Morpheus meet for the first time. Morpheus describes the Matrix as seeming like the real world. You're going to school, you're going to work, you're paying your taxes, but ultimately you are a slave. Morpheus basically affirms that yes, this world that you're living in isn't what you think it is. It is called the Matrix, and you have a choice now. If you want to see what this world is really about, then you can take this red pill, and then you're going to be able to sort of break out of this matrix and see the world for the real ugly kind of thing that it is. Or you can take the blue pill, and you can go on ignorantly on with your life. It will be as if we never met, you could just kind of go forward, but he's giving him a choice basically to decide one way or another. Are you going to want to learn about what the world is about or not? When I share this film clip with my students, I ask some questions that may seem a little bit stupid to begin with, but they're interesting. Like, is the premise of this film real? And by asking that question, I don't mean like literally are we living in a computer program and are we the batteries that are generating it? But is there something about this idea of a matrix that is sort of real? Like, are we living in a matrix kind of our own construction, or maybe of society's construction? And by the time we get done talking about this, then we do discover that there is a structure that limits all of us individually, and it's individualized, it's unique, it's different, and we are pretty much slaves to this matrix. Now, I will say at a very basic rudimentary level, we are slaves in the sense that we have a particular picture of how our life needs to be, and in order to survive in this society, we have to do certain things. So, for example, you need to get a job. If you don't get a job, then you don't have money, which means you don't have a house, you don't have a car, you can't really have meaningful relationships. This thing called money rules our life. That's a very, very powerful structure. And for some, it's not a burden because they have a whole lot of it. And so maybe they have more flexibility, more mobility. And some of us who don't have as much of it, we don't have that kind of flexibility. So our paths are narrow and our options are limited. But when we're talking about the matrix, we are also talking about things that are immaterial, things that are psychological or sociological, things about our environment, our social environment, that limit the way that we behave. So I ask my students, and I might ask you as well, how do we know what we know? I mean, we're born, we go through this life, we collect all of this information. This information is powerful in terms of the way we behave. Where does it come from and how does it work? Parents, absolutely. Parents are some of the most important influences that we have. I mean, you think about it, we're born and they're there and they're teaching us values from the very, very beginning. And if they're good parents, maybe they're teaching us good values. If they're bad parents, maybe not so good. Even if we reject the ideas of our parents, they still have a powerful impact in terms of the way that we do our lives. And so that's a really, really important part of it. What else? Peers. Okay? Yeah, your friends. Peers are those really, really smart people who say things like, hey, maybe your parents aren't right and you ought to do whatever it is I think you ought to do and not what they say you ought to do, right? What is it your parents say? If your friends drove off a cliff, would you do it too? Well, maybe your friends are real excited to drive you over that cliff. Now, that's not to say that peers are always bad. Sometimes they're great. They give you a lot of positive reinforcement, but one way or another, they're very influential to you. And who you hang out with, that's got an impact on the way that you behave. What about another one? We'll talk about work, okay? You spend 40 hours a week, probably more, maybe more sometimes in terms of the workplace. And if you do the math, like there's 120 hours in the week, that means you're spending 1/3 of your life, once you enter that workforce, doing whatever that work activity is. And so that makes it pretty significant. That's a huge chunk of time. And so you think about the time that's left over, right? You got 8 hours to sleep, maybe if you're lucky. You got another 8 hours to do with what you want, but then you're also commuting and you're doing all the other businessy things that you do in order to stay alive. So that work thing really is a big chunk of how you spend your time. And keep in mind, too, that the work environment is not a democracy. It's not like we live in this free society. I mean, we do 2/3 of the time, but 1/3 of the time we generally live in an autocracy. I mean, most businesses are that way. They have pyramid structures, they have top-down things. You have to do what your boss says. You have to go to the bathroom when your boss tells you to go to the bathroom. I mean, like, I'm being a little bit extreme, not true in all job situations, but whatever that job environment is like affects you and your options. And then there's the additional thing that I mentioned earlier, is that they also control your paycheck, which means that whatever it is that you need to do with the rest of your life is highly dependent on whatever happens with that place. So it affects your mind, it affects your attitudes, and it affects your behaviors in a really, really strong way. All right, let's go. What's another one? How about the media? When I say media, a lot of people automatically assume we're talking about the news. Okay, we are talking about the news. That's part of it. So maybe we'll just start off with that, for example, okay? So wherever you get your information is going to strongly affect your beliefs, which affects your behavior, right? If you're in one political party, then you love your own people and you don't like all the people from your other political party. And where you get that information, well, you get it from whatever media source probably that you already agree with, that's feeding you the stuff that you seem to already want to think is true. And people tend not to expand their circles or look for sources that are actually fairly objective. And there's more I could say in another video about how to seek out and get good information, right? I think that's a really important thing you need to do, particularly if you want to overcome this whole matrix thing. But suffice it to say, that has a really strong impact on a lot of people's beliefs. But the media is more than just a news media. It is a whole load of different kinds of media. Think about entertainment media, for example, right? There's movies, there's books, there are video games, there's music, and then all the celebrity culture that goes along with that. Whatever you're a fan of, that's a media thing. And sometimes the kinds of movies that we watch, or the stories we enjoy, or the way we spend our time, that has an impact on our brain. Now, I'm not saying that people who do violent video games are going to turn out to be violent people, but those storylines are kind of a part of who we are. They do affect our value systems, and certainly they affect the way we like to spend our time, right? It's like, maybe I would rather spend time watching sports than I would mowing the lawn, or maybe taking a side job to get more money, right? There are choices that we're making here, and that media is really strongly affecting what those beliefs are and what those choices are. What else do we have? School. So we spend a whole lot of time in school in our early life. Like, before we do the work part, we're spending a lot of time on the school part. Now, certainly, there's a lot that we learn from school, right? We learn history, we learn reading, writing, arithmetic. There's a lot of useful and sometimes not so useful things that we learn in school. But it's also important to understand that school is where the stage is set to learn how to be in a social environment. So when you are in a classroom, you are taught pretty much from the beginning, you sit down, you look forward, you be quiet, you stare at the idiot at the front of the room, teacher, at the front of the room, and you do what they say. And if you do not do what they say, or ask permission to do whatever it is that you're supposed to do, then you're going to end up in the principal's office, or sent home, or getting a bad grade, right? There's lots of punishments and rewards that are built into that structure. And then you take those attitudes and those behaviors, and then you bring them into the workplace when you go on. So really what school does to some extent is it breeds compliant people. It teaches people a certain way. And it's a real challenge for me as a college professor. Granted, you're sitting here and you're looking at the idiot here on the other side of the video, right? But like, if I'm in a live classroom, it's sometimes hard to get people to participate because they feel uncomfortable doing it, because they haven't really been taught how to do it. The assumption is that the person at the front of the room knows everything and you should be listening to them. Whereas my philosophy when I go into a classroom is, yeah, I may know more than you, but I'm not necessarily smarter than you. I want to learn from you too. And so I need you to take part in this so we can have a discussion, right? And school, traditional school, undermines this sort of possibility of collaboration between intelligent people and sort of communicates to people that there are some people who are smart and some people who are not, and if you're not, then you're out of luck. And that's a hard thing to deal with, but that's part of the matrix that has been built for you, right? What's the next thing? Next, let's go to faith. Okay, a lot of people go to church or whatever religion you are, whatever that version of it is, or non-religion for that matter. The presence or absence of it strongly affects how you're socialized in this society. I'm going to go with a Christian angle here, for example. I mean, most Christian faiths believe in grace and a loving God and all that, but there are a lot of denominations that also sort of argue, hey, if you're a bad person, then you're going to hell. Whoa. You know, for whatever that motivation is, faith systems incorporate values into behaviors, and if you believe this stuff and you take it seriously, then you really want to behave well. And maybe it's not just a strict punishment sort of thing. Maybe it's like a, hey, it'll help me be a better person and create a better society. But those sorts of beliefs and habits, particularly if you read a lot and you go to church or whatever, synagogue, whatever it is that you go to a lot, that is going to have a strong impact on what your attitudes and behaviors are as well. So the final one I'm going to mention is the government. Okay? So let's go back to school for just a minute. This is not true everywhere in the world, but this is definitely true of the United States. And despite what some people say, it's like, oh, this isn't happening anymore, it is definitely happening, right? I have kids that are in school, and throughout elementary school this happens. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. If I've got any international people out there, if you don't know this is something that American kids didn't do in school every day. The bell rings, they stand up. They look toward the flag, they put their hand on their heart, and they say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We all have it memorized, right? And what does it suggest? That we are pledging our allegiance to this country, to that flag that represents this country, and that's a really important value. And if you say this over and over and over again, you become conditioned to that. And so it becomes a really important part of your value system. By the way, what's the best country in the world? USA! USA! Right? You think people in Afghanistan chant USA? Not so much. Afghanistan! Right? Everybody thinks they're number one. Everybody's got some reason to think they're great. Okay? We're special. Like, look at us. God chose us. I exaggerate, but like, really, everybody's got a reason. It's a psychological drive to feel like you are number one, like you are the best. This is a message that's being passed through schools by the government to demand loyalty, right? But likewise, through the media, again, that's another conduit for this, government will send out all sorts of messages, right? They want you to believe what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that America's great, that America's number one, that it's awesome. And that's not to say it's not. I mean, America's cool, it's great, right? But there are lots of other countries who also believe that their country is great too. Having done a lot of travel throughout the world, I will tell you, there's a lot of great countries out there that aren't called the United States of America. Are we really number one? Are we really the best? I'm sure it was you like, yeah, America, America, right? But, you know, like, we're like number 37th when it comes to healthcare quality. So, I mean, we're not number one at everything. That's not the way most Americans are brought up, and I think that probably most countries in the world, it's like you only know what you know because you are in your own environment. Maybe it's the government, maybe it's a geographical territory, or someplace your knowledge is limited because you are there in that governance structure. You know, that's going to affect the way you look at the world and the way that you behave. You're living in the matrix. That's exactly my point, by the way. Is that if you feel some discomfort by some of the things that I'm saying, that's your matrix. That's it. You have been born and bred into a line of thinking that has made you a mental slave to your environment. This is referred to as a process of socialization. The other thing about this socialization thing, all of these sources, is they also represent groups that are important to us. Okay, well, let's break it down. We love our parents, we love our friends, we love our family. We're supposed to love America, right? We love America, right? We love our school, right? Because we got mascots and stuff like that. Spires, go Spires, go Spires. We're taught to love all of these groups. Now, we may not like our government, but we love America. In your religion, of course, you gotta love Jesus. It's true. It's like if you're in that religion and you're not in that zone, then it's like you're an outsider, man. Most of these things you kind of have to love, but you don't have to. It's just like you just do because that's the way you've been taught, and that's the way it is. And so what that means is that if they tell you something, do you think you're going to say they're wrong? Are you going to disbelieve them? I mean, we talk about political parties too, man. That's politics, right? Like, if you're a Democrat or if you're a Republican, oh man, you are team red or team blue, man. It's like the other side's stupid. They are idiots, man. Don't know what they're talking about. But I'm right! My side wins! I'm not going to take sides in this or anything, but I am going to say that there are some very, very strong walls that are constructed between people, not just for politics, but along a lot of those lines. And we are taught to trust those people that we love. We are slaves to all this information, and we do love these groups, and we don't want to tell them that they're wrong, and we don't want to believe they're wrong because they love us and they mean well for us, or, we believe they do, right? And we have been programmed that way. Very, very hard to do what you're talking about, to face something that you love and reckon with it and say it's not perfect, like I thought maybe it once was. That is a hard thing to do. But that is exactly what I'm expecting you to do in this class. Because in order to be a leader, guess what? You're going to have to think outside of what you know. Believe things maybe that are inconsistent with what you normally believe. These social groups and this social information establishes norms. I think you used the term norm before when you were talking about this. And social structures that enforce our behavior through patterns of conformity. You don't want to do things that are going to upset the people who you like, the people who love you. You're going to stay within that, and there are ways that is enforced. We are closed-minded. We are slaves in our mind, as Morpheus says. So let's talk briefly about what norms are. They are sets of expectations held by group members concerning what kinds of behavior or opinion are acceptable or unacceptable, good or bad, right or wrong, appropriate or inappropriate. What is normal to your group? Those are norms. It's not like it's against the rules. You're not breaking the law or doing anything right or wrong. It's just one of these things, like, it's just weird. It's not normal. It's not what we normally see. And so, like, whoa, what's that? That's what it's like to break a norm. We think of examples of norms. Let's say, let's play with my toys here for a second. Let's say that I taught this class with these funky glasses, and I just had them on like the whole time. You think it'd be weird?
I think it'll be something that we're not used to.
Yeah, you're not used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, what if I wore this hat, which, by the way, comes with accessories.
Oh, well,
yeah. My friend Jonathan Wilson gave me this. Yeah. He just graduated.
It might take a while to get used to that one right there.
Yeah. Well, hey, if Jonathan says he's from Jamaica, his mom brought this to me, so if he says I can wear it, right? But, okay, should I wear this teaching a class like the entire time? See, you're giggling over here, which means I automatically violated a norm, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get even weirder. Let's get out this like death mask, this like friend brought me back this from Italy or something. If I was teaching a class like this, I didn't say anything about it, just teaching. It didn't take it off. What would you think? Yeah, there's probably something wrong with me, right? I think this is an interesting one, right? So most of you guys go to the pool and you're just wearing swimming trunks and maybe no shirt, right? That's really common for men. Obviously not common for women, at least not in this country. You go to other countries, you go to some beach in Italy or something like that, and women are going topless or maybe bottomless as well, and you'd be like, whoa, where did I come? I'm from America. It's like, God bless America, right? Or if I'm teaching this class, what if I came in teaching this class with my swimming trunks and just like no shirt on? Quick story on breaking norms. In order to try to illustrate the idea of breaking a norm, how uncomfortable it was, I sometimes would bring lipstick to class. I'd wear this bright red lipstick and so on, and then just watch people get a little bit uncomfortable. But the one that actually replaced the one that really got me in trouble, and that was when I would take off my pants in front of a class. Now, hey, I actually had shorts on under the pants, so I wasn't really showing anything, but just the mere fact, like watching people freak out, yeah, I had to stop doing that. Another situation, the norm would be absolutely fine. Fashion comes and goes, okay? So the idea, like when I was in college, the idea of people having tattoos was like, you were a sailor or somebody of ill repute, really, if you had a tattoo, right? It wasn't until, I don't know, by the time I graduated that it changed pretty substantially. It's like, Axl Rose had like tattoos all over his arms and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, like everybody got tattoos because Axl Rose had tattoos, So things can change. We do not want to violate norms under most circumstances, right? Most of us feel very, very uncomfortable. And what breaking a norm is just breaking one of those social structures, doing something that you've been taught not to do. And then you do it. Sometimes it's harmless, and sometimes maybe it's inflammatory. So norms provide avenues for conformity. So that's when we behave according to what the majority wants or according to what is socially acceptable. How does it work? Well, I come into a classroom, I'm wearing something weird, you guys all think I'm weird. There are repercussions, there are consequences. So I have to dress nice. Let's say you have really conservative parents and you come home and you learned a bunch of stuff and now you think you're liberal and how's that Thanksgiving conversation going to go? It wasn't too long ago where if somebody was engaged in a same-sex relationship, they were afraid to tell parents about it altogether. That was like a big deal, still is, for a lot of people, for a lot of families. So you have to be like everybody else, or whatever those prevailing values are that those groups that are important to you perpetuate. What I like here is this sign that says conformity is relative, and you got all these punks over here, right? But here you got like this dude with the glasses and the tie, like dressed up like me and stuff like that. So who's the nonconformist? Got a whole bunch of people together and they're all dressed like punks and they're in their punk group and stuff like that. They're not the nonconformists. Right? They're feeling comfortable hanging out in a group with the people who look and act like they do. They may not fit the rest of society, but inside the context of that group, it totally makes sense. If you're in a group of people and maybe you're all dressed the same, but it's not the same as everybody in the outside group, you're probably still engaging in acts of conformity. It's just that that particular group matters more to you in terms of those norms than the others, right? Maybe the way I dress, for example, is more important that I impress my friends than I impress my parents. That social group is more important and more influential and enforces conformity, whether that's tattoos and mohawks or whether that's athletic gear. For our purposes in business, one powerful structure is organizational culture, but structures exist everywhere, right? So when you're a leader, you're not just dealing with an organizational culture, but you're dealing with people, all of whom have baggage. They all have their own matrix, and it's all a little bit different. And when they get together in this organizational culture, then they have their own norms, their own forms of conformity, habits that have extended over time. Maybe they're good habits, maybe they're bad habits, right? But that's when people get together, that's when they start acting stupid. My question here for you is it a good idea to sometimes break up those social structures, to challenge the matrix, to do things differently? Is you have all of these people with all of their experiences and all their matrices, you have your own, and as a leader, you're expected to go in there and then lead. It's not always an easy thing to do. It's more than just going in there and being optimistic and trying to do the right thing and all that. You guys willing to break some norms, challenge some social structures? You want to see the matrix for what it really is? Is that a yes?
Red pill.
Red.
You take the red pill?
Red pill.
This is a symbolic action, obviously. I do want you to start contemplating a little bit about some of this information I've shared with you and how it should affect your thinking as you approach leading an organization. What does it mean? Well, first let's talk about what it doesn't mean, because if you start Googling red pill, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that starts popping up on the internet. This matrix analogy has sort of seeped its way into right-wing conspiracy slang. So I'm just kind of like giving you a disclaimer that that's not what we're talking about here, okay? Like, there's a term out there that means that where they say it's being red-pilled. The rest of the world doesn't understand, but I've taken the red pill, so I got it all figured out, and everybody else is stupid, and we're the smart ones. That is one way in which people have used that. That's not the way in which we're referring to it in this class. I'm just saying, like, if you go do some Googling, you get some crazy stuff out there. But ironically, I would argue if that's your mode of thinking, look, if you've taken this red pill because now I am aware of all of this stuff around me, that would be an arrogant position to take. It's like the real lesson, I would argue, is to be open-minded and not sort of use it as an excuse to say me and the people who agree with me know a whole lot more than all these other people do. So what does it mean to take the red pill? What significance does it have for you, like in real life? You've done this symbolic thing, but what is it for real? I'm going to be aware of my matrix, right? And I'm going to try to widen my perspective. Maybe challenge a little bit of what I already know. Think about that, start thinking about things in different ways. And I'm not saying necessarily that you have to reject everything that you know or doubt every group that ever taught you anything, right? It doesn't mean that everybody's wrong and now, oh my gosh, whew, like, it's not like that. But you do have to be open-minded. You do have to think in ways maybe you haven't thought before. So one way to try to get outside your box is to try to look at media sources that are not biased, right? Avoid low quality. Avoid sources that are explicitly ideological and have a definite agenda in mind. Be aware of the kind of information you are ingesting and make sure that it is really quality. To start thinking like this is to take a risk, okay? That means that you're going to be out of your track, you're going to be out of your comfort zone. You might start to learn things and believe things that aren't normally what's in your own belief system. That can be a little challenging, a little bit scary. If you're violating norms, then you're not conforming to what other people expect. And that makes other people feel uncomfortable sometimes. It might make you feel uncomfortable, but should you still do it anyway?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big part of what we're going to try to do in this class is try to make you more brave. I mean, doing things that are against what everybody else does all the time. That's a very important trait for a leader. You gotta sometimes not care necessarily whether or not you're going to be the most popular person in the room, and maybe you got to break some norms, and then you got to figure out, okay, well, popularity is still part of it. I got to get people to follow me. So how do I get people to follow me, even if it's not someplace that they feel right off the bat that they want to go? In any given group, there's always going to be a certain percentage of people who are going to be go-getters and seriously excited about whatever you got to say, and a certain people that'll be kind of apathetic and they could be moved either way, and a certain number of people that are digging in their feet like, I fear change, I hate change, I don't want anything that has to do with change, I don't want to have to deal with anything that's different than what I'm used to. You have to start by being brave, by being willing to step out and sometimes do things that are difficult, challenging, hard, or dare I say, different. Maybe you should question me, right? Because we talk about school as a socializing force, and I'm the idiot at the front of the room that you're all staring at and listening to. Like, this is school, and I'm indoctrinating you, okay? I mean, I'm not trying to teach you bad stuff or wrong stuff. I'm doing my best here, but this is my perspective also. If you're taking the red pill seriously, what ought you to be doing in terms of me? it is your job as students in academics to question me as well. Okay? Like, I do know more than you do because I've had more school, but that doesn't make me smarter than you, and I am a human and I can still get things wrong. So I need you to not take me as seriously perhaps as, maybe you think you should take a teacher. Maybe that's the way you should look at some of your professors now, right? Again, respect their authority, respect their knowledge and so on, but like if something doesn't make sense to you, you should say, that doesn't make sense to me, right? Can you explain that to me? Are you sure that's true? Is that real? But you have to question me too. So socialization is the process and the sources of information that affect the way we think and behave. And things like norms and conformity are how these ideas get hammered into our brain. Now, this all creates a sort of matrix that limits our behaviors, our choices, and the way we think. Now, I'm talking about me, I'm talking about you, I'm talking about all of the people that you interact with or potentially lead. And so the more you understand about your limitations and other people's social limitations, the better you're going to understand them, so that the better you're going to be able to lead them and deal with them. I assume that if you've gotten this far in the video, then you are ready to take the red pill. Now, in my class, I have students actually take a symbolic red pill. And it is a symbolic process, obviously. I give them a little red Skittle and I'm like, hey, let's go take the red pill. The thing is, we need to do more than just take a piece of candy if we want this to mean something. At least for now, anyway, I would challenge you to condition yourself. Try to improve your skills as a leader, and to do so through positive habits and consistency over time. Now, all of these things are things that I can't even cover a fraction of that in what remains of this video. It's just sort of a checklist. So additional videos will come out where I'll address a bunch of these things. Like maybe we need to talk a little bit more about how you find good information and about how you change your social environment. How do you condition yourself? There's no way I can get all of that done in a single video here. So these are things that I think are forthcoming. But one thing I do think you need to be prepared for is that taking this red pill and starting to think like this is going to disrupt your normal social thing. It's possible that you may have friends, relatives, and so on that may not see eye to eye with you, whereas they did before. And so stepping out of your comfort zone and doing this kind of thing is a little bit scary, and it requires courage. But that's also an important part of leadership, is not always to do the easy thing, but to do the hard thing, particularly when it has meaning and truth and importance. So, best of luck to you on all of your leadership endeavors. I will see you next time.